Welcome to our channel Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. On a quiet October night in 1989, in a small Minnesota town where everyone felt safe, three boys rode their bikes home after renting a movie. They laughed, talked, and expected nothing more than a fun night together. But just a short distance from home, everything changed. A masked man stepped out of the darkness, and in a matter of seconds, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling was taken. His disappearance shocked the entire nation, launching one of the biggest searches in American history. For nearly 30 years, no one knew what happened to Jacob. This is the story of a small town shaken forever, a family who never gave up, and a mystery that haunted Minnesota for decades. It was a cool October night in 1989 in the quiet town of St. Joseph, Minnesota. The air was crisp, and the streets were calm, the kind of peaceful night that made people feel safe. 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling lived there with his parents and siblings. To everyone who knew him, Jacob was a happy, friendly, and playful boy. He loved sports, especially soccer, and he enjoyed spending time with his family and friends. Like many kids his age, he found joy in simple things, such as riding his bike or renting a movie to watch at home. On the night of October 22nd, Jacob and his younger brother Trevor were hanging out with their best friend, Aaron. They wanted to rent a movie, something fun to watch for the evening. Even though it was dark outside, the boys felt safe. St. Joseph was a small, quiet place where kids walked and biked around freely. Jacob's mom and dad trusted the community and didn't think twice about letting the boys take a short bike ride to the nearby convenience store. The boys rode their bikes to the store without any trouble. They picked out a movie, laughed, and talked as they checked out. The store clerk saw nothing unusual. To everyone around, there were just three kids enjoying their night. After a few minutes, the boys left the store and began their ride back home. They were only about half a mile away from Jacob's house. It was a road they knew well, a stretch they had traveled many times. But this night would be different. This night would change everything. As they rode along the dark rural road, a man suddenly stepped out from the shadows. He wore a dark mask and held a gun. The boys stopped instantly, frozen with fear. They couldn't understand what was happening. The man ordered them off their bikes and told them to lie face down on the ground. His voice was cold and threatening. He asked their ages, shining a flashlight on them as they lay trembling. The boys did everything he said, hoping he would just leave them alone. After a moment, the man told Trevor and Aaron to get up and run toward the woods. He told them not to look back or he would shoot. Panicked and confused, the two boys obeyed. They ran as fast as they could without turning their heads. They didn't know why the man let them go or why he kept Jacob. They didn't know if Jacob was safe or in danger. They only knew they needed to get help. When they reached the Wetterling home, they were crying, shaking, and struggling to get their words out. They told Jacob's parents that a man had taken Jacob. At first, it felt impossible to understand. This kind of thing didn't happen in their town. But as the truth became clear, Jacob's parents called the police immediately. Fear spread through the house as everyone tried to make sense of what had just happened. Within minutes, police officers arrived and began searching the area. Neighbors came out with flashlights. Farmers opened their fields for searches. Volunteers combed through ditches and wooded areas, calling Jacob's name over and over. Police cars, horses, helicopters, and dogs were brought in to help search. It quickly became one of the biggest searches Minnesota had ever seen. But despite all the effort, no one found Jacob. The masked man had vanished into the night. Taking Jacob with him, the investigation that followed lasted for decades. It was one of the most intense and frustrating cases in American history. The FBI got involved, interviewing people, collecting evidence, and trying to piece together the truth. Jacob's parents spoke to the media many times. They begged anyone with information to come forward. They held on to hope, even when months passed with no answers. The entire state felt the pain of the Wetterling family. Everyone wanted Jacob home. Jacob's story spread far beyond Minnesota. His picture appeared in newspapers, on television, and on missing child posters across the country. In many ways, Jacob became the face of missing children in America. His disappearance shocked families everywhere, and changed how parents thought about safety. Over time, the investigation grew more complicated. Leads came in, but none led to Jacob. People reported suspicious individuals, strange cars, or possible sightings, but every promising clue faded. Detectives tried everything they could. They interviewed hundreds of people, checked thousands of tips, and searched countless areas. But every path seemed to hit a dead end. The case slowly became one of the most heartbreaking cold cases in the nation. Despite the lack of progress, Jacob's family refused to give up. Patty and Jerry Wetterling turned their pain into action. They created the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center to help other families and to teach communities how to keep children safe. Their work provided support to many people. Even while they waited for news about their own son, their advocacy also helped change national laws. In 1994, a law was passed in Jacob's name that required states to create registries of sex offenders. This law was meant to help police track individuals who might be dangerous to children. It became the foundation for future laws, including Megan's Law and the National Sex Offender Registry used today. Jacob's story became a major force for change in how the country protects kids. But even with all these changes, the question remained, where was Jacob? Years turned into decades. Children grew up hearing Jacob's story. Many Minnesotans remembered exactly where they were when they first heard he had been taken. The case became part of the state's history and remained at the front of people's minds. Detectives who worked the case said they never stopped thinking about it. They carried it with them throughout their careers. For nearly 30 years, the truth stayed buried. But in 2016, everything shifted when a man named Danny Heinrich was arrested on unrelated charges. Investigators had looked at Heinrich before, years earlier, but they had never been able to connect him directly to Jacob. This time, the evidence allowed them to push harder. They discovered links between Heinrich and another assault that happened in the same area during the 1980s. This connection finally gave investigators leverage. Under pressure and facing serious charges, Heinrich eventually agreed to a plea deal. As part of the agreement, he had to tell the truth about what happened to Jacob. In a courtroom filled with heartbreak and silence, Heinrich confessed. He explained how he had abducted Jacob on that October night in 1989. He admitted what he did after taking Jacob and how the boy was killed. The confession brought a wave of grief across Minnesota. It confirmed what many had feared for decades. Heinrich then led investigators to a farm near Paynesville, a place not too far from where Jacob was taken. He showed them the exact spot where he had buried Jacob's remains. When investigators found Jacob's clothing and bones, the long search finally came to an end. Jacob had been found nearly 27 years after he disappeared. The news spread quickly. People cried in their homes. Radio and television stations shared the details, and communities gathered to mourn. Even those who had never met Jacob felt the loss deeply. For nearly 3 decades, people had hoped for a different ending. But now, at least the Wetterling family finally knew the truth. Jacob could finally be laid to rest. Because of the plea deal, Heinrich was not charged with murder. Instead, he was sentenced to prison on federal child pornography charges, the only charges that could still be brought against him. Many people felt frustrated by this, but the deal was the only way to recover Jacob's remains and give his family answers. Jacob's parents accepted it because after so many years of uncertainty, they finally had closure after the confession. The Wetterling family spoke about Jacob's life and what they hoped people would remember. They didn't want Jacob to be associated only with fear or tragedy. They wanted him to be remembered as a joyful, curious, loving child. Patty Wetterling asked people to honor Jacob by being kind to others, helping their communities, and protecting children. Even after the case was solved, Jacob's legacy continued to grow. His story changed laws, inspired organizations, and increased awareness about child safety across the country. Many detectives have said that Jacob's case forever changed how missing child investigations are handled, adding new procedures, faster alerts, and better coordination between agencies. Today, people still think about Jacob and how his disappearance affected an entire generation. His case became deeply personal to many Minnesotans. For some, it changed how they parented their children. For others, it influenced careers in law enforcement or social work. Jacob's story brought people together during the search. And it continues to unite people in the promise of protecting children. Though Jacob's life was tragically short, the impact he left behind is enormous. He became more than a missing child. He became a symbol of hope, strength, and change. His family's bravery transformed their pain into progress that continues to protect children across the nation. The memory of Jacob Wetterling lives on in every law that keeps children safe, in every search that begins quickly because of new procedures, and in every family helped by the organizations inspired by his story, even decades later. People remember the boy who went to rent a movie with his brother and friend on a peaceful October night and never came home. They remember the unwavering hope, the endless search, and the painful truth that eventually surfaced. They remember Jacob not for the darkness that touched his life, but for the light that followed, light that continues to guide people today. Jacob Wetterling's story remains one of the most emotional cases in American history. And so, Jacob Wetterling's story closes with both heartbreak and lasting impact. His life was taken far too soon, but the change that followed helped protect countless children across the country. Even today, people still remember the hopeful 11-year-old boy who touched a nation he never met. His legacy continues through safer communities, stronger laws, and the work his family carries on. As this story ends, viewers are reminded that every child deserves safety, every family deserves answers, and every voice raised against injustice matters. Jacob's memory lives on, not only in what was lost, but in everything his story inspired. For watching more amazing videos like this, subscribe our channel Crime Loom.